This is very, very embarrassing for the Tinubu administration. Very, very embarrassing. I am really surprised that with all the discussions that are going on concerning the seized Nigeria's presidential jets, nobody has talked about the root cause of the matter. There's a video I want you to watch that explains this. I'll play the video now.
The investor-state dispute settlement system. This is a shadow legal system whereby multinational corporations can sue states for enacting policies they don't like, which infringe on their quote-unquote investor rights. And it happens all over the world. This system is enshrined in free trade agreements. Embedded in these trade agreements are huge amounts of legal mechanisms whereby corporations can enforce their will on the countries that are part of that agreement. One of these is the ISDS systems.
So when the EU makes a trade agreement with a country in sub-Saharan Africa, it has ISDS in it.
Exactly. And there's the other part of this is what are called bilateral investment treaties, or BITs. And they're all over the world. They're between two countries. They're a regime, an investment regime that both countries have to abide by. But ISDS is enshrined in nearly all of those. So there's this whole web of treaties, agreements, which enshrine this ISDS system. And what it means is that corporations can sue some of the poorest countries in the world for huge amounts of money, billions of dollars often, for enacting policies like not allowing the company an environmental permit to dig for gold, for example. That was one case we looked at in El Salvador. There was one case in Egypt where a French water company sued the Egyptian government for raising the minimum wage. So anything that a corporation doesn't like that a government does, they can potentially sue for. Now, you would think that that is a massive attack on democracy, and it is. The second part of it is, it's not just the cases that get to court. Most of these cases are heard at a place called the International Center for the Settlement of Investment Disputes, ICSID, which is a part of the World Bank. The International Center for the Settlement of Investment Disputes,
Right.
ICSID. It's an arm of the World Bank. It was created in 1966 at the height of what I'm talking about, at the height of decolonization and newly independent governments. And what it is the main venue where these cases are heard. It's also a kangaroo court because these decisions are made by 3 arbitrators, one appointed by the company, one appointed by the government, and one agreed on by both. And it's hugely secretive. A lot of the documents you can't get your hands on. It's not just the cases that are heard at ICSID and this wealth transferred to the corporations that is the major issue. If you have this huge web of economic arrangements whereby multinationals can sue you, it means that it impacts on your thinking when you're devising policies in your country. Corporations want to have an insurance mechanism where they can get their profits and get the policies they want in place above the heads of national governments. There are enforcement mechanisms that it's not like you can just say, okay, we're not going to listen to you. If you're called to an arbitration, you don't recognize it, they can start taking your assets internationally. They can, there's a lot of ways of enforcing this system on developing countries. This international court will decide and you have to pay, otherwise we'll start stripping you.
So what would happen if they didn't pay? So let's say Bolivia takes a mining company owned by the US away from them. Court says, no, you have to give it back to them. And they say no. They fine them a couple of $100 million. They say, well, we don't recognize this court or this fine. What happens then?
There's actual legal systems in place where they can take your assets internationally. So if you have any kind of government assets in foreign countries, they can be taken. If you have boats in international waters, they can be taken. Also, you can be massively punished by the Bretton Woods institutions themselves because ICSID is part of the World Bank. So the IMF, they can do really punitive things that mean that you basically can't function. Your credit lines will be pulled. you won't be able to get liquidity if you need it in a time of crisis.
I am surprised that nobody in the Tinubu administration knew that sovereignty immunity does not cover this matter. It is clear that indeed these people do not understand. Again, I want to agree with Wole Soyinka. And what is it that Wole Soyinka said? He said that our leaders are economically ignorant. Yes, they may be very, very politically literate, but they are economically illiterate. And this is sad. The only way for us to fix that is to set up a new political party. Join us. Click the link in the description. Let's do this together. This is all a result of the IMF and World Bank structures that have been put in place to make sure that private corporations are more powerful than countries. And these are represented by instruments of the IMF and World Bank, like the ISDS, Interstate Dispute Settlement System, the Bilateral Investment Trade System, BIT, and International Center for the Settlement of Investment Dispute, ICSID. These instruments are what have been activated against Nigeria. Let this be a lesson to the Tinubu administration and to Nigerians as a whole, that indeed the IMF and the World Bank, the way they have written the international rules-based system is to favor the global north, is to favor the Americans and the Europeans. Basically, the Chinese and the Russians and the Indians and even the Turks are now coming to cash in on it. And unfortunately, we in Africa here, we don't know exactly what we're dealing with. I mean, come on. Is this not embarrassing that nobody is talking about it? They even had to go appeal in the US. It took the US to tell them that, look, whatever sovereignty, immunity you think you want to claim does not work, because according to ISDS rules, according to BIT rules, according to ICSID rules, anything goes. Once ICSID and its structures give judgments in favor of multinational corporations, there is nothing a sovereign country or a sovereign state can do. This is the handiwork of IMF and World Bank. I am surprised nobody is talking about it. This, again, is the handiwork of IMF and World Bank. This is the standard operational procedure of ICSID, International Center for the Settlement of Investment Dispute. And it's because when you do free trade zone agreements, embedded within them are ISDS clauses, BIT clauses. These clauses ensure that your sovereignty as a country means absolutely nothing. If they don't seize the plane, they can seize Nigeria's crude oil. They can freeze Nigeria's foreign reserve. They can. I know the government of Nigeria were claiming that, foreign national assets and foreign reserves are not part of the ICSID. Don't play. With ICSID, everything is touchable. They did not touch Russians' foreign assets, financial assets. The 300 billion that they froze from Russia, their foreign investments. Did they not freeze it? And that's almighty Russia. If they can do it to Russia, who is Nigeria? Again,